Hello everyone, David Adler, President of the Australian Jewish Association here. And as particularly people in New South Wales would know, we have a state election coming up in a few weeks towards the end of March. I'm privileged to have with me today as guests the representatives of the Liberal Democrat Party. Ross Cameron is the New South Wales President, and John Ruddick is the lead candidate for the upper house. Now, gentlemen, thank you for making time. Obviously, a smaller political party doesn't have the resources of one of the big parties, so your brand and message is not as well known. So in the sort of 30-second grab, can one of you say, what is the LDP? And Ross is well known, but who is John Ruddick?
Okay, well, look, I think the Liberal Democrats were a Libertarian party, and Libertarianism can really be summed up in two words: power corrupts. So while we get accused of being a right-wing party, the truth is that we actually just want less government and less government power, so there's less potential for there to be corruption.
Okay. And John Ruddick, why are you doing this?
Well, look, I had been involved in the Liberal Party for about 30 years. And the founding principles of the Liberal Party are from the 1940s, etc., are very, very similar to what the Liberal Democrats stand for, which is all about small government, low taxes, deregulation, encouraging entrepreneurialism, civil liberties. Okay, so I had hoped that the Liberal Party could rediscover those ideals. I gave up on them in the middle of COVID, and so I've joined a party which I'm very excited to be part of.
Okay. Now, the Jewish community has mixed political perspectives. What's your view on some of the major issues and your approach to issues in the Jewish community, such as anti-Semitism, Israel, any others that you think are relevant?
Well, we would be on the side of Israel. Obviously we're speaking to it's fair to say that there are differences of views among Jews about Israel.
True.
And in fact, some of those who are most anti-Zionist wind up being what I would describe as liberal Jews in the American liberal sense. But look, I just say that if there is a case for the creation of a modern state, it was the creation of Israel. And we saw, for whatever reason, anti-Semitism is a very ancient phenomenon. It's not new to this generation, although we note that it seems to be on the rise in Europe, in the United States, and indeed in Australia. Indeed, a good friend of mine, who's a former Israeli Defence Force tank commander, said it seems to me the world is forming the view that Jews are, quote, surplus to requirements.
Wow.
But certainly we've seen inside the British Labour Party, there is this very pretty, they're wrestling to contain what seems to be an organic hatred of both Israel and of Jews. The Australian Labor Party and Greens, likewise, we find seemingly attracted to at least a kind of dog whistle. We get Bob Carr. Bob Carr is really the sharp edge of the anti-Israel sentiment in the Labor Party. I'll say to you, David, that in relation to Israel, it was its creation was something of a miracle. Barely, we don't really know why, for example, Stalin supported the creation of Israel. Johnny is a student of history. Give us your thesis.
Well, look, I got this from a magnificent book which I've read twice, Paul Johnson's History of the Jews. And in it he says, towards the end about the creation of Israel, he says that Stalin, which had probably 24 votes at the UN, and who was an anti-Semite, at the last moment, got the Soviet bloc at the United Nations to support the creation of Israel. Does that not sound right to you?
I'm honestly not familiar with that manoeuvring behind the scenes. All right, let's bring it back to New South Wales because that's the issue of the day.
Mm-hmm.
What things do you see that you would pursue should you be elected at the end of March? John, what are your priorities?
Okay, well, look, I just want to say a quick thing on anti-Semitism, if that's okay, David. So look, I can understand why people believe in communism. I don't agree with it, but I can understand the logic that they've got to get to that point. I can understand radical feminism. I can understand, say, protectionism. There's a whole lot of things that I don't agree with, but I can understand where they're coming from. But this anti-Semitism is thing I just cannot understand. But as Ross said, it is ancient. And it's in the modern world happening right now.
For sure.
It is this great curse of mankind. And, look, I believe, and I'm not a particularly religious person, I believe those early chapters of the Bible, or the Torah, are remarkably accurate insights into what was happening 4,000 years ago. I believe Abraham was a genuine historical figure. And I think that the secular scholarship in the last couple of generations has definitely moved in that direction. If we went back to, the 1950s, etc., most secular scholars at the best universities in the world, they would have said Abraham is a myth. But I think they are now saying, look, the backdrop that you see in those very early writings very much accords with the archaeology. And so I think there is this, there's more Australians in the world than there are Jewish people. Okay, so there's not many Jews, but they've done such immense good for the whole of humanity. So we're very grateful to have this discussion with you, David. Okay, now on the New South Wales election, when the Labor Party government lost in 2011, they handed over a state debt of $7.9 billion, which is quite modest. There's a lot of wealth in New South Wales. $7.9 billion deficit. Now, after 12 years of the responsible economic managers in control, the debt's currently $79 billion on it, but we've already baked in $114 billion worth of debt. Now, this is under the Liberal Party. Now, I think that you can go through the budget papers. They're not that difficult to read. They're all available on the internet. David, there is so much waste and pork. It's just endless. Grants to this and that. The COVID art. And all these councils get things to do, the silliest things. Now, the Liberal Party used to have lots of good premiers. Nick Greiner was a good premier, fiscally.
I knew Nick well.
Yes. Richard Court, Jeff Kennett. These were good. They had a go. The last state premier in this country who had a go to bring about small government, low tax entrepreneurialism was Campbell Newman. He had a real go. Now that he very sadly lost, after bringing in a lot of tough reforms, he sadly lost, and I don't blame him. There was going to be a swing against him. But the federal government decided to give the Duke the first knighthood 3 days before the Queensland election. And then Campbell Newman only just loses. I think what happened is after the Campbell Newman loss, I think the Liberal Party got this message, oh my God, let's give up on fiscally responsible government or we'll end up like Campbell. And they've all gone to hell ever since. They've all been terrible. Well, we want to bring back, that cutting debt, cutting expenses, and basically basic household budgeting for New South Wales.
I would say, David, if I were to take a crack at that question, that what you see in the modern Liberal Party is that it is a generic global product. It is really indistinguishable from, if you want to say, well, how different is Dom Perrottet from Chris Minns?
It's a good question.
You're going to struggle to outline the contours of difference. And I mean, speaking about waste, Dom Perrottet, as Premier, proposed to spend $25 million to build an Indigenous flagpole on the Sydney Harbour Bridge. And I would say it reflects the degree of detachment from the concerns and problems of ordinary Australians. You have in a Liberal government this push me, pull you between Matt Keane and Dom, who has some, I think, subterranean conservative reflexes, whereas Matt Keane is your out and proud World Economic Forum, green, woke, left, progressive, who could be Adam Bant. You could swap Adam Bant for Matt Keane and you would not know the difference if you couldn't see the image on the TV. So the Liberal Democrats are what the Liberal Party used to be. If you go to the Liberal Party website, you'll see a "We Believe" statement. Every single one of it, the three of us, all I think would go tick, tick, tick. But when we actually turn and watch their performance in office, it's just like, for example, you've now got Dom Perrottet sacking candidates based on their gender because he says you must have a certain gender to get in. Well, the classical Liberal tradition is you must have a certain character, you must have a certain capability, you must have a certain ability to advocate for the interest of the citizen. And this is where I would say the Liberal Democrats are still firmly anchored and grounded in the interest of the citizen, whereas the Liberal Party has flipped and is now an instrument of the government.
Yeah. Fascinating. Well, we might make two videos, but I want to assure everyone that the credentials of these gentlemen concerning Jewish community and Israel matters, and indeed the Liberal Democrats, have an outstanding record. I remember when I first physically met John Ruddick, it was on a spectator cruise, and he noticed I was wearing the Australia-Israel flag pin. He told me how much he loved it, and I was proud to give it to him. This was before my role in AJA was well known. Ross Cameron actually received a substantial international award for a statement that he made in support of the Jewish contribution. What was that award, Ross?
Al Jemina is the original Yiddish newspaper in New York. It now produces an English language version.
And they have a world top 100.
Each year they give what they call the J100, which is to 100 people around the world who have most positively influenced Jewish quality of life. And that award I shared with Sharon Stone. So I naturally had to go to dinner with Sharon to collect the award, but took my wife with me.
Of course. Well, just have a look at this statement that received the award. It's only a minute or two.
I just say that the conservative mind says, do not invent something new if there is already a beautiful solution available to you which someone else has invented. And basically the Jews have already invented everything. So don't waste your time. Just have the humility. As far as I know, I don't have a drop of Jewish blood in my body, but I would be absolutely honoured and delighted if I did. And I just want to say to the Arab world, you've got, 350 million Arabs in 22 countries. You pride yourself, the Arab sort of Bedouin culture prides itself on hospitality. I just want to say to you that I don't think your policy of punting the Jews is in your interest. And I think if you just sat down for a moment and said, OK, we've got this little rare jewel of 6.5 million Jews in the state of Israel of 8 million people. This is one of the best things going for the Middle East. This is what I have described previously as the magic in this operation. So wherever you are in the world, if you have a Jewish neighbour, say God bless you. When you see a Jew walking on the street, you should recognise an ancestor of King David and say, this is absolutely the most awesome story of human survival ever written.
Now, if people want to find out anything more about the Liberal Democrats and what the New South Wales policies are, what should they do?
Well, they can go to our website, which is ldp.org.au. We have prepared a Freedom Manifesto, which will certainly, about 8 pages, it will certainly give people a taste of what our agenda is.
Okay. Thank you so much. AJA doesn't formally endorse any party or candidate, but we do want to bring you relevant information, and you can only judge people on their track record and what they've said, and hopefully you'll be a very positive influence as we work closely with David Lylandholm, who was a New South Wales Senator, and he was one of the outstanding people from our perspective in federal parliament. And if you get into the New South Wales Parliament, hopefully you can deliver in the same way that he did.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for having us, David.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, David.